Hey guys, it's Aaron from Team Endgame, bringing you a new series of set reviews for G-BT10 Raging Clash of the Blade Fangs. This is the first proper set that we're doing a set review on. It includes the support for Royal Paladin, Shadow Paladin, Gold Paladin, Tachikaze, Murakumo, Nova Grappler, and Neo Nectar. So before I get started, first thing I want to point out is this set doesn't actually have a lot for my particular clans, being Royal, Shadow, Gold, and Neos, about 10 cards each roughly. I'm going to stick to my original idea of doing it on a clan by clan basis for each video. If you like it this way, let me know. If you'd rather me group them up because there's such a small amount of cards, let me know, and next time this happens I'll aim to do that. This video is going to go over the new Shadow Paladin cards for set 10. There is one new special reprint, and that is for Orogai's Dragon yet again. Even though we just got it in the Revival Collection, we're apparently getting it again. So getting into it, our GR is Draganga Ogma. He is the new Shadow Stride, which has on the Vanguard an act once per turn skill at Ritual 5. You can Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and choose a face down card in your G-Zone, turn it face up. Choose up to 5 of your Grade 1 rear guards, retire them. Your opponent then chooses a card from his or her hand or rear guard for each of your retired units and then puts them into the drop zone. If the total number of rear guards put into the drop zone of both players with this effect is 3 or more, you can draw a card. So again, the GR's a sort of flexible card, supposed to go in any kind of deck. It's a pretty decent card. You essentially force your opponent to get rid of cards that they'd rather not get rid of, but it's a one-for-one situation. You get rid of 3, they get rid of 3, or however many you want to do. The only upside is that you get a card back. There is, however, a downside to this, and that is it does say the total number of rear guards put into the drop zone. So if you did only retire 2 Grade 1s, your opponent can actually counter you by discarding 2 cards. Since only 2 rear guards were put into the drop zone, you won't draw a card. So the only real way to ensure that you can draw a card is to retire 3 of your own. However, this leads me on to my second point of Ritual 5 and retiring Grade 1s. If you want to make the most out of this effect, that is retire 3 of your own to ensure you draw cards. So you're retiring 3 Grade 1s and you need 5 in the drop zone. That's 8 Grade 1s gone in order to use this effect to its fullest. Considering I'd imagine most people run 14, maybe 15, that's over half of your Grade 1s have to be basically gone in order for you to use the skill. It is a little easier if you're running Morfessa. Morfessa's more likely to be used in a Luard deck, so I would say this card's more focused towards a Luard deck for the moment. I'm not saying it's a bad skill, it's just really hard to get off to its full potential, and I don't actually think it has much of an impact. It's an okay card, mediocre at best. Honestly though, I'm struggling to find a situation where you might want to actually use it in a turn. The only other thing that might make sense is if you're retiring units that give an effect when they're retired. Though I don't think there's that many impactful cards out there. The only thing I can think of is Paladin, but that is focused to a Diablo deck. If you guys know of any decent combos, please let me know, because I honestly can't see it. As I said, relatively mediocre card. I don't see it being used that much. I honestly think people are overhyping it. Next is the Double R for Shadows, which is Belial Owl. It's a new crit trigger. So it has a Generation Break 1 Ritual free in the drop zone. At the end of your turn, if you have a Vanguard with Luard, you can put this to the bottom of your deck. And as a second skill, when this is retired from the rear guard for the effect or cost of your card, and you have a Vanguard with Luard, you can draw a card. This is a really solid crit. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just a crit that recycles itself for no cost, as long as you have a Luard Vanguard. This does however mean that you need to run the Grade 3 Luard, since at the end of your turn your Stride will go back before any of these effects activate. Therefore, even if you don't have a Luard Vanguard and just stride into it, that won't proc the effect to send it back to the bottom of the deck. Its second skill to be retired, however, does work if you just use the Luard Stride. However, I think the first skill is the most important part of this card, and I think it's a really solid skill, and an auto include in all Luard decks. And that was it for double rares. So moving on to rares, we have Dark Dragon, Animus Pile Dragon. So he has a continuous on the Vanguard, Ritual free. This gets 5k for every Grade 1 in the drop zone. That's it. Pretty bland standard skill. It's just a beat stick stride, doesn't really do anything. There's no names that you can steal from it to do various skills. It's honestly a meh card. And the last rare is Evil Refuser Dragon. So this is a new Quintet Wall. Counterblast 1 when it's placed on the Guardian Circle during the battle that your Vanguard was attacked. You may pay the cost. If you do, call 5 cards from the top of your deck to the Guardian Circle. And the second skill, continuous on the Guardian Circle, a Generation Break 1 and Ritual 3, this gets 10k shield. Honestly, I think this is a really good card. It's a quintet wall, which I think people are overlooking the idea that you can actually use them in ritual-focused decks because it helps fuel ritual for various costs and effects. Secondly, the fact that this second skill has a 10k shield as long as you're at ritual and generation break 1. You don't even need to use the quintet, you can literally just call it, no skill, and it's still 10k shield. It's a really good card, and if you use the quintet, you've got a bonus 10k shield on top of that. The only issue is because it's a quintet, it does counterblast. That is the only issue I see with this card. Other than that, I think it's a really solid card. Though its current contender is the previous perfect card I forgot the name for that can recycle from the drop zone back to your hand. I really want to try this out simply because of that second skill, honestly. It's just 10k shield, whether I use a perfect card or not. I'm really tempted to use this just for a second skill, honestly. Even if I don't use the quintet, it's just nice to have an extra 10k shield floating around. And just like that, we're into commons. So we have Knight of Contest Edern, grade 3, auto on Vanguard and Rearguard at Ritual 3. When your other Rearguard is retired, this gets 2k. And second skill, when it's placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, you can retire a grade 1. If you do, draw a card. So it's a 1-for-1 when it's placed or called, retire 1, draw a card. It's not that useful, honestly. I mean, it sets up Ritual, but that's about it. It's kind of naff. I suppose the main part is Ritual 3, it gets 2k when another Rearguard is retired. 2k isn't really making a lot of difference unless you can 2 retires, I guess? I suppose it does make a bit of a difference, but even so, I think there's better backup grade 3s. If it wasn't a grade 3, it'd be pretty good, but since it is a grade 3, I think it's bad. Next is Knight of Selection Fergus. So he's a grade 2, when it's placed on the rearguard, you may choose a grade 1 or less from your hand and discard it. If you do, reveal 3 cards from the top of your deck, choose a card with the lowest grade from among them, put it to your hand and the rest to the drop zone. So the idea of him is he's supposed to be a ritual activator or fueler, so just popping cards in the drop zone to activate it and stuff. I suppose the two downsides of this card are it's 8k, so that means you have to kind of work to make him useful on the rearguard. And secondly, the fact that you have to pick the lowest grade from among the cards that you've revealed. It can't get you out of grade lock, which would make him really good in my opinion if you could pick, and you're probably taking triggers out your deck. And you can't even find, well, you probably could find Strike 4 or something, but still, it's unlikely. You're probably going to just get a trigger. It's an 8k, it takes up space in your grade 2 lineup. I think it's a really bad card. Next is Drag Wizard Medea. So act on the rearguard once per turn at Generation Break 1 and Ritual 3. You can counterblast 1 and it gets a K for each of your units with Ritual until the end of the turn. And a second skill, at the beginning of your main phase, you can Soul Blast 1 and retire this. If you do, countercharge 1. So his second skill is nice that it countercharges, but yet again, it Soul Blasts. Shadow Paladins do not have a decent way to do any soul charging whatsoever. Soul is a very limited resource for Shadow Paladins. If it didn't Soul Blast, I'd say it's a good card, but since it does, that makes it, well, that skill in particular, quite bad. So that means that, in my opinion, the main reason you use this card is its first skill, Counterblast to get a K. So the max it can get is 6k, because it does say units include your Vanguard, but it's only really going to make a difference if you can get 5k. Counterblast 1 to get 5k, that's pretty good, but considering you've got cards like Morfessa, which just gets 5k for attacking, it's kind of lackluster in that sense. I mean, it's okay if you're going for a power, beat sticky type deck. It still means that the majority of your cards need to be ritual. It is plausible, and I'm not saying it's a terrible card, but I'd say there are better cards than this, but it is plausible to run in your ritual deck. It's alright. New Shadow starter is Knight of Rebellious Spirit Aldan. So Forerunner and on the rearguard once per turn, Generation Break 1 and Ritual 3. When your other rearguard is retired, this gets 5k until the end of the turn. So since it's once per turn, you can only get 5k, so it becomes a 10k boost. So unless you're running 11k grade 2s and 3s, it's not that impressive, honestly. You're still probably better off running the Drag Wizard starter from the trial deck, since that goes into Soul. And last but not least, we have Drag Wizard Ciarl, which is a new draw trigger, and it's vanilla. So that's it, guys, a grand total of 9 cards for Shadow Paladin. I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll be attempting to churn out the rest of them, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other clans, and 7 if you include Cray Elemental. I'm sure I'll chuck that in another review somewhere. Please let us know your comments and thoughts down below. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow us on Facebook, and we'll see you guys later.